This is Devlog 1. I'm Wholesome Guy and I'm making a game about stealing asteroids. In a previous devlog, someone suggested the name Grand Theft Asteroids. I might steal this, it's a good name. We had left off at making a UI slider, throttle lever. I spent hours and hours researching about UI Toolkit, watched every tutorial out there, and finally decided maybe UI Toolkit will be a good implement for the game. First of all, there isn't much documentation about UI Toolkit, and the UI builder is built like absolute chaos. Okay, wait. The lever that I made, please mind my pixel art skills, I made that lever in 2 minutes. That lever took 3 hours to implement, and yet that border isn't disappearing. Wait, it disappeared. How in the holy hell was I supposed to know to put the already 0 alpha 200 and back to 0? How the hell does it work? I was done with UI and I went to someone who everyone goes in peril. I tried to tell him to convince me to use UI Toolkit, but even he and many others on the internet use Legacy, the normal inbuilt UI system for Unity. UI Toolkit isn't yet built for efficiency. I loved the concept of UXML and USS files, though they are basically HTML and CSS files that we use for web development. I was so done with UI, I shifted my focus to something else. I converted the long list of variables and values for the movement of the spaceship into a scriptable game object. It is basically a data container which is globally accessible, used to create variants. I connected the project to GitHub because last time, while developing my previous game Soul Hunt, my first ever fully published game, I nearly lost everything. I don't want that to happen again. So I connected the game to GitHub and pushed my commit to the origin. The next thing I wanted to work on was the camera. Though I was happy with it, it was too static for the game. When the spaceship increases its pitch value to certain limits, the spaceship goes out of frame. I made a flow chart to understand the code and how I'll write it. Miro is a good website I use for such tasks. I tried my best to reduce the dependencies and to manually change the shoulder offset value, but it is too janky. I tried 3 different cameras for positive and negative pitch and for ideal motion, made the camera work somehow. I tried every camera type out there, from transposer to orbital, to find out which will suit. But in the end, it was third-person camera all along, just needed some cinemachine transitioning. I came back to UI, made the slider in Legacy. Back to Legacy? Yes. How dumb are you? More than I expected. Wrote the script, which was easier than UI toolkits. It is working now, I just need some HUD sprites. And I found some I liked. Now, this is a very confusing state for any game developer. What the hell do you do first? Starting required a push, but now choosing which branch to pursue is difficult. I use Kodiak to make my life easier and try to keep the project organized and keep me focused on one branch. This is all for the week. Yet again, this is just a prototype, so some corners will be cut to publish it as soon as possible. I need to work on the color palette of the game, and it is about time we dive into color theory. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Since you have made it this far, consider subscribing. This was Devlog 1. See you next week.